welcome back. We're here with Helen Irlen. We're having such an interesting conversation about the Irlen Syndrome. So thanks for being with us, Helen.
I love it.
And yeah, this is so much fun. And before we get started on more questions, I actually want to tell you a story because this has been so fascinating for me. And just like when I met Daniel, I'm like, yeah. ADD is like nonsense. So I kind of thought the same thing when I heard it, because I'm like this neurosurgical, hard-charging ICU nurse, right? Trauma nurse. So whenever I hear stuff that sounds sort of fluffy to me, I'm like, yeah, whatever. But I have to tell you a story. What made me a true believer, like a serious believer. So this is so interesting. I just wonder how many other people out there could benefit from this. So my sister... we're actually, I often say, I joke now, it's like, oh, I finally have a sister, not a project. And so she's like, we actually have a relationship now. But I always thought that she was just irresponsible. And it just irritated me because one of my top values is responsibility, right? It's like, you have to take responsibility. And I just felt like, what is your problem? Why can't you just be responsible? What is the matter with you? Because she would just do the goofiest things. And she was so clumsy. And she's been in 19 car accidents. And she would be driving and just drive off the side of the road and flip a car or like go into a ditch or run into something. And even when she came to my house,
she flipped the car
with me in it.
You had it.
So yeah. And so, I mean, it was just nonstop with this kid. And so she's 9 years younger than I am. And it just made me crazy. And so she's staying at my house a couple of years ago because a traumatic event happened. And I come outside and she's parked on my curb, like pressed against my mailbox. And I'm like, it just never ends. I'm like literally going to lose my mind with this girl. Like, I just can't do this anymore. And I'm just having these thoughts. And we're in the car and Daniel's asking her a couple questions. And I like comment about the car on the curb. And Daniel literally hits the brakes, puts his hand over his mouth. He goes, I know what's wrong. And he goes, I feel terrible. I didn't think of it sooner. He goes, I know what's wrong. And he makes an appointment for her to come see you. And I'm like, yeah, right. Okay. I'm like, you're just giving her an excuse.
And
because you know I'm mad.
Remember?
No, it gets worse. So yeah, part of the problem was she literally, like, part of what was irritating me so badly was, and I was trying to figure it all out, she thought people were electronically harassing her. She thought, because she would look if there's fluorescent light going, she started to see laser beams. And so she sometimes they'd come from the floor. Sometimes they'd come from the ceiling. Like if it was a hard surface floor, she'd see them bouncing from the floor. And so she thought people were like beginning to harass her electronically. It began to get really weird. And so she would just freak out and not want to leave the house, and she'd stay in the dark. Like, she'd keep all the lights off in the house. It just got really weird. And so I'm like, okay, I don't know what to do with this girl. So she comes to see you. And it just changed everything. Like, it literally changed. We don't let her drive yet, but it changed. But it changed everything. She doesn't see the light beams. She doesn't have anything. Now she recognizes when we go places, if they have certain lights, she's like, I just can't sit under that light, but I have my glasses on. And now I know that those are not, I know it's from the light now. I don't feel like someone's doing something weird. So isn't that a crazy story? I mean, you hear them all the time.
All the time. Absolutely.
And do you think light pollution is causing more ADD, anxiety, depression with the fluorescent lights?
If you want to say light pollution in terms of the amount of time that people are spending on electronic devices, absolutely. The clients that we see now are so much more severe than they were even 10 years ago. They're coming in on the severe, and I used to say 17's my high score in terms of how severe you are, and a lot of them are coming in at 8 is severe, 17's was my top, and now they're coming in towards 17, 18, 19.
And that makes sense because everything we do is on a computer.
Everything is electronic. Absolutely. And you're under fluorescent lights that have gotten brighter and brighter. So they're under their most adverse environment trying to function, and they don't realize it.
And so it can affect them at work. It can affect them in school. It can affect them in their home. It's amazing. So if you suspect that this might apply to you or someone you love, Irlen.com is just a great resource for you. There are self-tests. Actually, when I'm in my office and I'm sort of suspecting this, I actually go to the website and I do the short test and I go, so how many of these 14 symptoms do you have? And it's often people have 8 or 9 or 12 of these symptoms. And I'm like, and I had this one girl from Oklahoma, and she'd been diagnosed with ADD and anxiety. And the medication helped, but not as much as we had thought. And she had terrible early.
But it would make you anxious.
And when we got it treated, she actually saw her mother's whole face for the first time.
That's crazy.
Isn't that?
No, I hear all this.
But I have
heard
to
this
say
story.
something.
I hear it all the time.
So I have to say something though. Think about this. If you are seeing light beams coming at you, or you think you're being electronically harassed, or you can't read and you're in law school, that's going to cause some serious anxiety or depression.
Absolutely. And you're trying as hard as you can. And the harder you try, the worse things get. So then what do? Right? I brought in, if you think of an optical illusion, and I brought an example of an optical illusion because that's what's happening to the brain. Basically, for my clients, the world becomes like an optical illusion for them.
Oh, wow.
And people don't even think, should I show one of these?
Yes.
Yeah.
So those of you listening, you won't see the optical illusion, but we also record this and you can see it on YouTube. So there's this swirl pattern, at least that's what I see.
Yeah. And things can happen or change. Things can flicker or flash or shimmer. Things can move up and down. Things get blurry. Things can disappear and reappear. And so you're getting this happening, though, all the time. And the only way you can make it stop happening is to stop reading or copying or get out from under the fluorescent lighting. So you have to get away from it. And then you get labeled. And the labels can vary from ADD to just not trying hard enough to you need to pay more attention. And the kids just blame themselves because if they look at a page that looks like an optical illusion and they look at their neighbor's page, it looks exactly the same. So the issue is one of, well, they're seeing it just like I'm seeing it, then there must be something wrong with me. And the other thing you and I talked about is how we just assume a lot of the things we experience as normal. Like reading is supposed to put you to sleep.
Right.
Right? You told me your
story. Oh, yeah, I read
that.
to go to sleep.
Yeah. And how many out there read to go to sleep without realizing it? That there are people who can read for hours and hours and hours and never get tired or never get sleepy. Another comment that I hear a lot is, well, of course, everyone's going to get a headache. They just need to read long enough. And then you look around and the majority of the population doesn't get headaches from reading. So they're assuming that it's their problem and they don't even need to report it or tell anyone, and nobody asks them. I mean, no one asks them. There's not one test in school or psychoeducational battery that asks questions about how it feels.
So how do people get this? What causes it?
2 ways. One, you can inherit it. So it doesn't surprise me when you talked about reading put you to sleep, knowing that your sister's severe. You may not be as severe on the continuum. So you inherit it. And that's fun because we always talk to the children and say, well, we're going to find out if you have Irlen who you inherited from, whether it's your mom, dad, or both. And that just immediately makes them feel better. It goes, it's not my fault. Right? Mom goes, I know, it's probably my fault, but either way. Or you can acquire it through head injuries, concussions, whiplash, or certain even medical conditions that are autoimmune related and certain medications that make you more light sensitive. It can be one or both. In terms of the concussions and TBIs, we're seeing a lot of workman's comp cases who have had auto accidents or accidents at work. And we've worked with 500 of our military men and women who have been over in Iraq and Afghanistan and experienced multiple blast injuries and have been living with a headache every minute of every day that become migraines once a day to twice a day with the nausea and dizziness. And they're all getting medically discharged, and they have families to support. They can't go back to school because they can't be under fluorescent lighting. They can't read any longer. and we get them in the lenses and it changes their lives. And that's what I hear from every one of them. You've changed my life.
Wow.
I don't suffer anymore from headaches or migraines or eye pain or eye strain. I'm able to read and I think, and I have a future. Anger is another interesting issue. I had a mother, as we do pre and post and we do follow-ups, and I was talking to one of the Marines and I asked about anger, and his wife grabbed the phone away from him and said, Helen, I need to tell you, his anger was so bad that I would take the children and have to hide in a closet to protect us and the children. She said, since he's been wearing his Irlen spectral filters, we haven't been able to hide. We don't need to be in the closet at all anymore. So I want to thank you.
All right, stay with us.
That's
When we
wild.
come back, we're going to talk about traumatic brain injury and the Irlen Syndrome.
If you're enjoying the Brain Warriors Way podcast, please don't forget to subscribe so you'll always know when there's a new episode. And while you're at it, feel free to give us a review or 5-star rating, as that helps others find the podcast.
If you're interested in coming to Amen Clinics, use the code PODCAST10 to get a 10% discount on a full evaluation at amenclinics.com. For more information, give us a call at 855-978-1363.